A low dose but a profound experience. An LSD trip report sent in by a subscriber. Hey Vivek, thought I'd share a relatively low dose LSD trip that changed my life for the better. I was 19 when I first experimented with psychedelics. Since I was about 14, I was deeply interested in the philosophical implications of being able to change your perception with substances, and I recall alarming my parents with my Wikipedia source knowledge of drugs and how to consume them. I was back home for my first year in college. I've been interested in altered states of consciousness and eager to experience something like what I was reading about online. I'd enjoyed cannabis regularly while away at school, but I'd never tried any other drug besides alcohol. I'm naturally cautious and took great care to put myself in a good space and try to do everything safely. LSD appealed to me as a good molecule for this experimentation, as the dosing seemed less random than psilocybin mushrooms, and I wanted the physical safety of a classical psychedelic. I acquired a 100 microgram tab from a friend and went home to my parents' house, which was empty for the weekend. I cut a small piece of the tab for a later microdose and took the remainder about 11 AM on a sunny day. The come up was a little anxiety inducing, but soon I was embraced by a warm love which beckoned me out into my yard. My parents' backyard has a lovely hill full of flowers and desert plants and a few trees. Birds and other animals frequently visit and will go about their business if you are still enough that they do not see you as a threat. Summer flowers were in bloom all around me, and I lay down under the shade of a large tree to take it all in. Laying my head on the grass, I saw the miniature world of aphids and ants, for whom the blades of grass formed a vast jungle, and I felt their life force was the same as mine. I looked back up at the tree and recalled a memory that had been locked away. My grandmother, visiting from her home country when I was young, planted the tree and said, "One day, I won't be here, but this tree will give you shade." This memory felt incredibly profound and enhanced my feeling of oneness with all that was around me. I felt connected to my parents and family, physically separated as we were, more than I ever had in my life until that point. I watched the branches of the tree blend and shimmer and form honeycomb-like structures and felt happier than I'd ever felt. For the next few hours, I enjoyed the visuals and contemplated the place I found myself in. I felt like until that point, my entire self, my thoughts, had been trapped in a rut which grew harder to escape with each passing year. For the first time, I felt a version of myself step out of this rut, and I could see things from a perspective I've never known was there. I looked in the mirror and was delighted with my appearance. I was in those days particularly self-conscious about my appearance, but for the first time I looked upon my body as a great miracle, a wonderful machine that let me breathe and experience and wander in this world. My face shimmered with purple tones, and I laughed with joy. As I started to come down, I felt this great need to share some of the love I experienced. I called my parents and told them I loved them, saying it more earnestly than I ever had in my young life, and thanked them for the sacrifices they had made for me. I started to feel lonely, in this house by myself, and took a deep look inwards to try to understand how I could feel this way with so much love and joy around. What I found was that I had been living my life in a very wrong way. I had hurt people who were close to me, and taken their friendship for granted. I allowed my inner fears to dictate everything about how I interacted with people. I was a facade. No one really knew me. I had lashed out to those who offered me help and pushed some way, and hurt others very deeply. I cried a long while, but accepted that these things had happened, and now I could only move forward. From that moment, I knew things needed to change, and I began a years-long journey to be a kinder person to myself and others. I have many close friends now who I feel I can be myself with. I'm also closer to my family, and closer to my authentic self. I feel that this is a lifelong journey, and one I must recommit to regularly, but one that I truly believe I would never have started were it not for this trip. I could see my past in a way that was kept hidden from me by my own mind. Each year, I look back and the person I was is further and further away. I've continued to experiment with psychedelics in low to medium doses, continuing to approach with caution but openness. I try to approach every experience with great respect for the power of these substances. I felt compelled to share this experience in part from hearing so many trip reports that involve very high doses of psychedelics or other hallucinogens. I don't want to discount the experiences of others, or the insights they've learned, but I do want to share to any budding explorers of consciousness that you can have these wonderful, life-changing, profound experiences with even small amounts of these substances, if your setting is right and your heart is open. It's not always necessary, in my opinion, to tear yourself down in order to build a better version of you. Happy travels. That was a fantastic report, and I fully agree with his sentiments towards the end regarding experimenting with lower doses of psychedelics. They really can be just as profound and life-changing as these high-dose experiences that I report on the channel as well. It's really not necessary to take a massive dose unless you want to have some serious mystical experience and you're fully open to it. And I'm going to go out on a whim and say that the majority of people aren't ready for that or even want it. They just take higher doses because they think it's just going to fix them or take them down the path automatically, when realistically the most important thing is to take the psychedelics to open you up to these insights and then integrate them rather than have them forced in your brain, which is what happens on a lot of the higher dose trips. So yeah, for anyone listening to this video, and especially you younger people, not only do I not recommend taking psychedelics at all up until you're probably like 20 or when you've matured really. If you are realistically going to take them and you're a younger person, please just take lower doses so you can work through things much easier and manage the experience, because it will kick you in the arse if you take a high dose and you're not ready for it. Majority of people aren't even ready for it when they've matured, so yeah, it's just better to be safe than sorry. Your whole tripping journey will last your whole life if you're serious about this, and you may as well just keep experimenting with lower doses so that you're safe and comfortable. And like this guy says, if the setting is right, you can have an extremely profound mystical experience, but it's not completely frying your brain like it can do on a ridiculous dose of mushrooms or LSD. Obviously that's not always going to happen, but for the vast majority of people, their ego isn't ready to handle all this information. So yeah, thanks for sending in this report. It really hammers home that point that I tried to make. Just be safe and experiment wisely. So yeah, thanks for reading, everybody. Oh my god, I'm fucking bad at speaking.